Man, it has been hot this summer. And you know what sounds good when it gets hot like this? Traditional ceviche. But what is traditional? If you're thinking that ceviche actually was originated in Mexico, you'd be wrong.
Ceviche's earliest roots actually trace back to the Andean coast. This was long before the arrival of the Spanish. The native people of the time were already marinating fresh fish in tart local acids like over-fermented beer and mixing that up with chili peppers. This was a way to flavor as well as preserve the fish. Then, in the 1500s, the Spanish explorers arrived and they brought with them citrus. They also brought death and looting and disease, but they did bring tart oranges and later on, lemons and limes. That single ingredient transformed the dish into something much closer to what we recognize today. From there, it spread north along the Pacific coast into the ports and fishing towns of Mexico.
Doesn't matter how you make it, where you get it, it comes in many different varieties. And today, I'm gonna make mine. Today, we got some sheephead. This is a loin of sheephead that we have. It was sitting in the freezer. Thought it would be perfect to make some ceviche for today. We've got some oranges, some limes, some lemons, a red onion, some cilantro. We're gonna be using these red Fresnos. I personally like the flavor a little more and they're a little bit more spicy. In addition to some cucumber, tomato, and I got an avocado around here too I'm also gonna throw in it. Yes, I'm throwing in the kitchen sink into this ceviche and it's gonna taste amazing. Well, let's get into it. Normally rockfish has bones coming down the midsection here. Now when we're making ceviche, it's really not a problem. All we're gonna do is run our knife down it one way, come on down the next, and just take that thing right out. Now make sure you really wanna make sure that you get all of these bones when you're coming down. Now this is how we would do it, even if I was gonna be cooking this as well. It's got that little split there, but you know what? That's a beautiful fillet to be using for what we're doing here. I would even cook that in the pan. Now depending on how you like your ceviche, that's gonna determine how thick you make your cuts. For me, I like about this size here. You know, you get into these little chunks, and that's perfect for me when we start talking about how big we want our ceviche to be. So I'm gonna give this a quick dice. All right, guys, look, it doesn't have to be pretty. Now, in a lot of places, they would actually go through and start mincing this up. We're not gonna do that. I think this is plenty big enough for what I want today, and we're gonna go ahead and just toss that right in our bowl. And I'm gonna give my knife and cutting board a quick rinse. All right, now that my cutting board's clean, let's get some juice in here. I'm just gonna throw my sieve or my strainer, doesn't matter what you have, right on top of there. And I'm gonna start with 1 lemon. We're gonna go with 2 fresh limes and an orange. In a lot of Mexico, we are used to seeing only limes in our ceviche. But when you go down to the Andes and even some parts of southern Mexico, when you start getting into bitter oranges and more citrus like this, for me, I like a mix of all of it. And that's what we're gonna do today. So we're gonna start with getting some of this orange in here, then some of our lemons. All right, let's give this a peek. All right, guys, as you can see, it's just enough to cover. We don't need to get crazy with how much citrus we're putting into here. At the end of the day, you just want it to barely cover the fish. Now, we're gonna pop this in the fridge and let it sit. Again, the time depends on what you like. All right, now while we have that in the fridge, we're gonna go ahead and start off with our veggies here. We're gonna start off with a red onion. It's gonna be perfect right there. All right, guys, what you see there, just take a spoon and get in there and get all of that out. Here's how I do my peppers. First we cut it there. Then we're gonna come right down the middle. Then we just lay that flat and come in and we can get those seeds right out. Then again, I'm gonna flip this over. All right, guys, here's how I do my avocado. Right down the middle. Roll it around. Give it a twist. You come in with the butt of your knife, twist again. Now I am not going to use this knife to cut into this nice soft avocado. We're gonna come in with our butter knife here. Okay, just like that. Pop that to the side. We're gonna go in with our tomato. Last, we're gonna do our cilantro here. And what I like to do is roll this up nice and tight. And you can come through almost like a chiffonade. There's a couple big pieces in there. Who cares? I like it like that. Okay, guys, it's been about 45 minutes since we set this ceviche into the refrigerator to marinate in this lemon, lime, and orange juice. Now, if you look closely, you can see that it's still just a little raw on the inside. Now, it's still perfectly fine to eat. Okay, you don't have to worry about getting sick or anything. The quality of this fish is extremely high. However, for me, I like it to be cooked a little bit longer. The more it sits in this citric acid, the more that fish tends to firm up, and the more of that citrus punch is going to come out when we actually mix it with all of our other ingredients. So I'm going to let this go back into the fridge for another 45 minutes and go from there. All right, the fish is right where I like it. It actually sat in the refrigerator for about an hour and a half, and it's actually not 100% completely through, but it's at the point where I really like it. It's much firmer than it was when we checked it at the 45-minute mark, and it also has just a lot more of that citrus burst we're looking for when we actually do this. I love ceviche. We're gonna start by adding our cucumber here, and we're gonna add in our onion. Go ahead and get that tomato in there. You get all that chili in there. Our cilantro. Now I actually like to give it a little bit of salt and pepper as well. Kind of wait till the end here to really be adding in any of the salt. You know, a lot of times you don't want to over salt it at the beginning. You want to let that citrus really marinate it and take care of it. And then I am going to add just a little bit of this black pepper. All right, let's give that a stir. That just looks fantastic. So we're just gonna go ahead and get that scooped in there as well. And see how easy that came out the way we cut it? All right. At this point, be a little careful. You don't wanna mush up that avocado, but you do want it broken up and get it spread all throughout the mix. In most parts of Mexico, when you get your ceviche, it's actually going to be on top of a tostada. I like it with chips. And that is my take on ceviche. It really incorporates all of the different ingredients you would find up and down Mexico. And I'm telling you what, this is amazing on a hot summer day like it is today. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh, yeah. Till next time. Ah.